All right. Well, welcome everybody. If you just jumped on the call, I am Kate Van Wyk with LOTUSWEI. I am going to be hosting and moderating this evening's call with Katie Hess and Dr. Stephanie Marango. So we're so glad to have both of them here with us. And so let me just give you a quick background. Dr. Stephanie, she is a dear friend of Katie's, and a little bit about her. After a transformative car collision, Dr. Stephanie, MD and RYT, entered the path of physician and educator. She is a graduate of Stanford University, Mount Sinai School of Medicine, the California Pacific Medical Center, psychiatry internship, and the Sivananda Yoga Ranch. Her work focuses on connecting you with the wisdom of your body for greater well-being, and to that extent, Dr. Stephanie founded the I Am Body. It's a private health and education practice that's based in New York City, and she gives lectures throughout the wellness community, everywhere from hospitals, fitness conferences, yoga studios, online medical sites, and even health-focused radio shows. And she is also a devoted mother to an adorable 1-year-old and a dog and a cat and 10 fish. And her book that she has written is called Your Body and the Stars, the Zodiac as Your Wellness Guide. And that is actually available now. I have a copy of it here. You guys can see the cover. And then Katie Hess, she is flower alchemist and the founder of LOTUSWEI, which is one of the world's leading floral apothecaries. After 15 years of independent research on flower and plant-based healing, her flower-powered community is thriving in over 15 countries. She instigates a revolution with the premise that you transform the world by transforming yourself with a little help from flowers. Katie travels worldwide to seek out flowers that reduce stress, improve sleep, and also accelerate personal growth. And her book, which is on pre-order now and will be available November 15th, is called Flowerevolution, Blooming into Your Full Potential with the Magic of Flowers. So welcome, ladies. So glad to have you here.
Yay! You look amazing, Stephanie. You look so incredible. You're radiant.
Must be the radiant energy anointing oil that I just got into the chat.
Gets you ready for everything. Oh, I'm so glad to have both of you ladies here. So the format of this call, I just want to ask you ladies some questions and find out, have you tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, let me just jump in here, Kate. I was going to say that to everybody who's listening, we realized that that the debates are coming on like right at the end of the call. So we're just we said it was 75 minutes. We're going to shorten it down to 60 minutes. So if you're interested in watching the debates, we'll be done in time for that. And so we'll just start out by Kate's going to ask us a couple questions and answers, and then we're going to have this really juicy, meaty section at the end where if you have any sort of questions or issues or things coming up with your body, or you can share, and then there'll be the both of us that can sort of do mini consultations.
Very fun. Get a chance to hear right from the experts. All right, so Stephanie and Katie, I'd love to know what inspired you to write your book and why it is you do what you do. It's such a great, both of you ladies do such amazing things, and I'd love to know what your why is behind what you do. Stephanie, you want to go first?
For me, the inspiration was literally a moment of inspiration. I had been attending a talk in 2012 on the evolution of consciousness where Rebecca Gordon, who's the woman who collaborated with me, was a panelist. And I didn't meet her at the time, but this light bulb went off with a couple of things. One, she is someone I know at a deep level and have yet to meet. And two, because I'm a holistic health physician and I work with the body as connected to energy in many different forms, it occurred to me sitting down at the talk that, hey, if the body connects to chakras, acupuncture meridians, Reiki fields, et cetera, why shouldn't it connect to the Zodiac? And I went home totally inspired, and I woke up and I wrote the outline for the book not realizing that what I had tapped into was not my idea, but actually ancient history, as medical astrology literally existed for thousands of years in terms of its connection between the zodiac signs and the physical form. My why in writing the book, though, isn't necessarily to proselytize the zodiac, but it's just to remind us that we're more than meets the eye, you know, and we have so many tools. We're really fortunate. We have acupuncture and flower essences and yoga and nutrition. And here's another way for us to expand our sense of who we are. And that's what I'm here to do. Remind us that, yeah, we're all energetic beings. It's time to start living that.
I love that. I love that.
I love that too, Stephanie. That's really great. I would just say that the reason I wrote the book about flowers is because I worked with people one-on-one doing consultations for 10 years. And the kinds of transformations I saw in people were just mind-blowing, incredible. And so I have always been searching for ways to reach more people. And a couple of years ago, I was in India for a global wellness summit. And I was there with Louis Schwartzberg, who I had met a few months earlier, and we've become friends. And he is a filmmaker who specializes in time-lapse photography and filmmaking of flowers blooming. I'm sure you've seen his work on YouTube or his TED Talks. And someone just said, you guys should write a book together. And it was like, absolutely, that makes perfect sense. And so it really just all fell into place very magically without effort, which was wonderful.
Your stars aligned.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so wonderful. So then I guess the follow-up question to that would be, so, and especially Stephanie, that personal connection and that reminder and those tools, like, so what exactly does it mean that we have a personal connection to the cosmos or to the stars? And how does your book help us explore that connection?
Well, at the very literal and physical level, we are made of stardust. We hear that comment a lot, and it is actually true that the different elements inside of our body, the hydrogen and nitrogen and carbon and oxygen, etc., are made of atoms that came from stars that lived and died billions of years ago and are now recycled back as us. That's how energy works. It's converted. It never disappears. So then my question with everything, whether it's stars or our body or the flowers, is, okay, well, what's the next level? I believe we are body, mind, emotion, spirit, and they all exist simultaneously. There's different ways of saying the same thing. So if we're the physical matter of stars, what does that mean metaphysically? What do stars represent to us? And through the zodiac, which are 12 different constellations, all of which live within us, and each of which presents a different story for us, whether it's the Aries and the head of the ram all the way to Pisces and the feet of the fish. They just represent parts of us for us to tap into. It's already there physically. It's waiting there for us metaphysically. And so this book is really just a practical guide to that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I love what you said about that it's just there waiting for us, because I have the same feeling about the flowers, that they're, growing all around us. And sometimes we walk outside and we're in our little do mode, and we don't necessarily pay attention to what's flourishing around us, and that it is benefiting us and helping us in every moment, right? That there's this communication that's happening between us and plants without us even being aware of it in some cases, which is really amazing. In the same way that the stars, your body made of stars is this like such an incredible realization as well.
Well, and that's what I love about our work, though. I see it as saying exactly the same thing, just my substrate is stars and yours is flowers. So you're saying, hey, certain flowers are able to physically harness the energy of joy, right? Just like certain stars are able to, communicate that as well. I had for those folks out there who, if you haven't already bought Katie's book, should buy her book. It's fantastic. And I had the privilege and honor of being able to contribute a quote to it. So I got to read an advanced copy. And I was just overjoyed that not only did you put this information out there, but I was laughing, and I told you at the similarities between our work, just in the way our lenses, and then the way we communicate, how we see the flowers and joy, or stars and their stories.
Totally. And I think that leads into the next question. I can see it as like the practical applications, because I think it's funny how we both wrote in a way it's organized in the same way that, whatever is the message for you, there are definite, things to reflect on and things to do and things to bring into your life.
Yeah. Well, otherwise it's just a novel you've written in your head, right? A lot of people, I hear the terms a lot, I know what I'm supposed to eat. I know how I'm supposed to exercise. And I don't mean to mock that or take that lightly at all, but the point is to take that knowing and embodiment and embody it. Otherwise you have these great ideas, but they stay as ideas. They don't become a physical reality. And you need to ultimately take your hand and hold the pen and write the book or write the list down to make it that physical reality. And so in my book, I give the practical exercises from yoga to Pilates to meditations to journaling. And
yeah, can you give an example? Like, just pick a sign and maybe a couple things that would you'd recommend.
Sure. And then I want to continue waxing poetic on how your embodiment as well. I use it with my patients' son. I'm a huge Katie Hess fan at all levels. Many of my patients recommended and take LOTUSWEI products. So an example. So we're in the month of Libra right now, not for much longer. We're actually transitioning into Scorpio this weekend. And just so you guys know, because I know astrology has morphed from ancient science to pop cultural horoscope phenomenon, it's actually a very complex sport, so to speak, at the level of traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. And so even though we're most familiar with our sun signs and maybe the moon and rising signs, all 12 signs live within us and represent different body parts. So if you have the body parts, you have the signs. So in terms of Libra represents the lower back, and we're in the season of Libra and that energy. And it's the lower back. And when you think about the back is the part of our body that really supports us. So when people come in back pain, it's usually because they've been bending over backwards, so to speak, for others, or they don't feel that people have got their back, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that dovetails really nicely with the lesson of Libra, which is a very people-pleasing sign. And we need to be able to work and play nicely with others, but we also have to know how to balance our own needs in a way that supports ourselves so we can best support others. And a great way to harness that energy for yourself, because back pain is one of the top reasons folks see physicians, a great way to harness that is Cobra Pose. Uses the deep muscles of the back. You got to do it right, though. You've got to lift your hands those 2 inches off the floor so you know you're not cheating by using and leveraging with the strength of your arms, and that you're actually just employing the deepest layer of back muscles, which are the ones that are going to literally lift you up. Got to not clench the tushy as well. So a Cobra Pose done properly and done regularly, which is that's so key, right? It's the intent you're going in with. You have to know why you're doing it, and then you have to do it well and consistently. And that's what I love, what you put around the instructions with your products, to take that moment. And I'll instruct folks to breathe. Actually, you say to make a wish, but to make the space to harness not just the physicality of what's going on, but all of the good juju around it. Yeah. So what's up in flower world this month? Well, I
was going to ask you, we're transitioning into Scorpio.
Yes.
Can you just riff a little bit on what Scorpio?
Oh yeah, Scorpio is fun. Scorpio is the sacral center. Scorpio is the pelvic bowl and the womb and the uterus and the bladder. It's a very fluid area. It's the seat of our emotions. And the entire theme of Scorpio as it relates to the Zodiac is to die, to transform, and to soar. because we have all of these different iterations of ourselves, different versions of ourselves, right? We don't stay like one person for the many, many decades, hopefully, of our lives. You know, we effectively have to be able to let go of old notions that no longer serve our purpose to move into who we're being called to be. And Scorpio is that energy. Scorpio is the, hey, I don't care how much chaos has to occur for me to just hit the bottom of the barrel, but I've got to hit the bottom of the barrel so I can not only rise up, but rise to an even higher height and soar again. And it's a very mystical sign. You know, it's the area where the Kundalini is believed to reside. Robert Louis Stevenson is Scorpio author. He wrote Jekyll and Hyde, right? The split personality.
Ooh, I love that. Oh my God, it's a completely. I had a feeling it was the Scorpio, not the Libra. It totally ties in with. So in the Flowerevolution program right now, we're working on with a gardenia flower, and it totally matches up with those more so those aspects of looking at what are our shadow sides, and what are the, you know, things that we avoid, or maybe that's messy or imperfect, or maybe we just don't really look at it that often. So gardenia helps us shine light into those areas. You know, look at all sides of our personalities, and then embrace them, and like invite them all to the party.
Yes, acceptance is key. Acceptance is key. When I see people holding on in that area, a lot of women hold weight in that area, actually. And even if they're eating the right foods or doing the right exercises, until they're able to release those old.
Like the jelly rolls? So you're saying
the jelly rolls, right. And release them by way of acceptance. Not like, I don't like you, get away. But, you know, okay, I understand that I'm this multifaceted, exquisite human being, you know, the light and the dark. You know, even if
the jelly rolls melt away.
Left it to them.
Then the weight lifts.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm working with a woman on that right now, actually. Yeah.
I love it. So just, can you, any tips in that area? So like, what would you recommend someone like salsa dancing or
belly dancing?
Mm-hmm.
Belly dancing, getting into that area and accepting it, harnessing it, right? That's our nether regions. Our society, I mean, it's even called the nether regions. We just that area of the body. And if you think about it, like, nothing should inherently have stigma. Stigma exists because society gives it that stigma. As a side note, I once was interviewed by, Fitness Magazine on farting during yoga. And their whole thing was like, you know, what can you do if you fart during yoga class? And I was like, just nothing. You farted. Like, you're allowed to respond. Your yoga is to not feel any shame around that, because it's not inherently shameful, right? There's nothing, like, our nether regions are not inherently shameful, right? Your yoga is to just accept them and to see that there's a stigma that doesn't inherently exist and get past that. So something like belly dancing is a fun way also to tap into the magical aspect of that area. But even a lying back Supta Baddha Konasana, like butterfly with your feet, but while you're reclined, while you're lying down. Yeah, thanks, Kate, for kind of, yeah, exactly. I'll disappear if I try to show it. But doing that and placing your hands on your sacral center, on your lower abdomen, and breathing into the area or bringing light into the area, really just connecting with that area is a great first step.
I love that.
How about rubbing gardenia anointing oil
on
the area?
Oh, that sounds great.
Right? Luxurious. Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
So gardenias. Come on.
Katie, do you have any other like practical applications within your book that you want to expound on a little bit? Like how we can, like the different ways that we can harness that energy of flowers, and like really, like Stephanie was saying, all those different exercises and things.
Yeah, I mean, in a similar way, the book is about flowers, but you don't have to have flowers or flower elixirs in order to have the book make an impact. There is an interactive section of the book where you look at these spreads of 48 different flowers, and you choose the flower or flowers that you're most attracted to visually, because you'll always move closer to those flowers that benefit you most in the moment. And it's always changing. So you can just take a look, see what grabs your eyes, And then it's kind of like choose your own adventure. So you just turn to that page and you'll find, not only like fun facts about the flower, but also really more importantly, what does it mean about you right now? What might be happening in your life? What are some questions to ask yourself? What are some things that, action steps you can do to really magnify and bring out the quality that flower, represents as well as promotes inside of us. So just exactly in the same way that Stephanie was saying, focusing on a certain area of the body in order to harness the energies of that particular arrangement or constellation of stars in its energetic capacity is this very, very similar to flowers, their qualities, and using that to bring out those qualities in ourselves.
That's awesome. And I love that both of your books are set up almost identically in that choose your own adventure. Like, you can look it up by the flower that you're most attracted to, or you can look it up by a certain quality you're wanting to harness. And same with the Zodiac. I mean, when I first picked up the book, I immediately went to Scorpio because that's my sign. But then it's also like, oh, well, I tend to have shoulder problems. So it was like, I love that both of your books have that. It just makes it so practical and applicable and usable.
You know what I also do sometimes? I don't do it with my own book because that would just kind of be ridiculous. But I will do it with Katie's book once I have the paper version of it, and I do it with other books, is ask the book, what do I need to know? Almost like a tarot deck, and open it up. And then see what meaning or resonance you can derive from whatever chapter you open to. It might surprise you. The flower that you wouldn't otherwise have looked at, or the constellation that, you hadn't yet considered.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that idea. Yeah. That's so great. Okay, so then what we really want to know next is what is your favorite part of your book, and what was like just the most fun part that you had writing? Like you just had so much fun writing it. You were so excited.
I feel like Katie knows the answer to this.
Sure, I'll go first. I really loved writing about the flower profiles, like, really kind of like studying and zooming in one by one on each flower was really fun. It was like being in this kind of love affair with one floral for a little while and really getting to know it. And I actually learned a lot. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know before, just in terms about, what the crazy fun facts about the actual plant itself. And I really enjoyed that. It was really fun.
Like what? What's one like really crazy fun fact that you're sorry not to put you on the spot there to collect?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat like, for example, there are a lot of flowers in the tropics that are considered highly poisonous, and yet there are indigenous cultures using them safely for a variety of different conditions as a medicine, for example. So like something like black bat flower, which is a flower that literally looks crazy like a black bat. It's highly poisonous. You wouldn't want to munch on it, but it's used in Southeast Asia for a variety of different conditions. So I'm just sort of fascinated by the sort of depth of awareness and knowledge of plants that indigenous cultures have had without, very different from Western style, which is we read the books and we do the research. It's that very much in alignment with the flower essences and the stars, which is a lot of it is you learn as you go. You may not be able to find the information in reference books, but you working directly with the plants, you figure it out.
Yeah. Observation and experience. That was once upon a time. I mean, that's our intellectual ancestry now. That's how we lived. And that riffing off that's probably my favorite part of writing my book too. Harnessing the consciousness from thousands of years ago. I had no idea that astrology is a foundational part of the history of science. Whether you believe in astrology or not, it is very much a part of history of science and medicine. And linked with the history of astronomy, geometry. That's why, like, when you go to Wikipedia on someone, Ptolemy, Plato, whomever, they're like mathematician, astronomer, astrologer, and physician all at once. Because it all, there weren't distinct roles. It was all occurring all at once. It was all connected at once. And that's how people experienced the world as dualism, Descartes, that was thousands of years later. It was this beautiful, luxurious whole. And so I think my favorite part was writing the As Above, So Below chapter, where I could bring ancient science into our modern day and make it really tangible. I just had a lot of fun being like, hey, holy cow, like, did you know astrology was the history of science and that it's the history of medicine? And they didn't teach us this in med school, but here's how it made sense then. Here's how when, the ancient Greeks looked into the night sky and they saw Gemini planet, they also saw the hand. And that likewise, looking at the hand, they saw the hand as not just, skin and muscles and bones and whatnot, because, even anatomical dissection was really just beginning then. But they saw it as a gift of the gods. They saw it as representing communication and messaging and illuminated brilliance. And I really had fun bringing that understanding because, you asked at the beginning the why for this book. And for me, it's to remind us all that we're more than meets the eye, that it's to open a conversation.
Yeah.
I think that puts a whole new spin on it, right? Because we, in our culture, we tend to think, horoscopes, it's been kind of, dumbed down. But when you look deeply at it, it is profound and it really, really is a science.
Yeah. Well, science is defined as a systematic study of whatever. We forget that. We've very narrowly defined science these days. And, as I do have a science background and training, I don't think that's right, because I do think that the nature of science is inquiry. And we always have to question what we know and what we think we know. And that's the only way that we can truly proceed in a fruitful matter.
It's the only way we can grow, right?
The only way we can what?
We can grow and develop and move beyond. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I just had to sit with that for a minute. That was that was great. Okay, so then on the flip side of that, what did you find? Because neither of you are originally authors. Like, you have practices and you decided to write a book. So what was the most challenging part of that, of writing a book? What was the biggest challenge there? Or even just, something that obstacle that you didn't foresee?
I don't have any Virgo in my chart. Sorry, I don't have any planets in Virgo. And sometimes within the astrological world, you can have difficulty connecting to the energy of that sign, or you try to kind of fill that hole, so to speak, which of note, Rebecca Gordon, who collaborated with me, is like Virgo, 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 Virgo everywhere in her chart. But Virgo is a very detail-oriented, perfectionist type of sign. They're the one, that energy is the one that can tend toward obsessive compulsive behaviors, can tend toward hypochondriasis. And for me, it's the eagle eye. So every word, I probably spent too long on every word and making sure it was absolutely perfect and did the best it could to convey the meaning and connected to all of these other parts. And my takeaway for the next book I write / am writing is to let go more, to let it come through more and not have to lower mind it quite as much, because it's okay. Mind you, I'm very happy with the word that were chosen. But that was more laborious than it had to be. Wait,
question. Are you saying that in your personal chart, you have no planets in Virgo, but that this entire practice for you was a learning of Virgo?
The hardest part of the practice was the Virgo part.
Oh, interesting.
It's I'm inherently very, very eagle eye. It comes super easy for me, but it brings me, I don't want to say down, but it's just, I'm holding on to it more than I should be holding on to it. Kind of, Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I think what shocked me the most about writing the book was when I first got the contract, I was just like, oh my God, over the moon. This is going to be the most incredible, like creative. I'm just going to be like exploding every day with creativity and like writing. And it's just going to be so effortless and easy. And then reality set in, which is like something totally unexpected happened, and like happened all the time throughout the whole process, where really weird resistance would arise, or strange blocks. Or I remember thinking once that there were a few periods of time actually where I was writing towards the end where I literally like wanted to jump out of my skin. And I wasn't, without any real conscious awareness of exactly what was causing that feeling. But I realized through writing the book that it's almost like some kind of spiritual practice, in that it brings up stuff that you would not even know is there, or couldn't even put a name to it, or necessarily understand it. It just, arises, and you work with it as you can. And then like more concretely, I remember calling Stephanie actually like, during the process, because she was already like way down the road farther than me and with her book. And I must have written like 20,000 words. And then I just took the whole thing and scrapped it and threw it and started over with, only like about 6 months to go in the time period. So I remember, feeling in the beginning like, oh, well, I've really got to like back up and put claims behind the whole flower essence thing, because it's, people kind of consider it a little bit woo-woo or out there, or energy of flowers. And then I just realized I needed to scrap it, because it was going to be a very boring book if I wrote it that way. And so I just started writing from personal stories, which I think are more interesting anyway. So a lot of challenges along the way, but it was worth it.
Awesome. That's so amazing. So in a minute here, we'll shift into the second half of this this talk. But before we do that, what is, if there was like one thing that you wanted people to come away with after reading and using your books, like what would that be? Just like that one thing that they come away with.
I guess for me, it's to remind everyone about their connection to the cosmos and whatever that represents for them. Meaning, we all are more than meets the eye. And whether you choose the Zodiac, flowers, whatever have you as your tool, choose something to expand into that greater sense of self that is there. And keep questioning, and definitely have fun along the way.
Ditto. It's for me, it would be really connecting into the fact that there is magic all around you. There's magic all around us, that we have so many unseen supporters in the botanical world who are just like waiting to be discovered, and waiting to help us, and waiting to support us, and waiting to dissolve our stresses and help us accelerate our personal growth and transform as we can. And that it is also a direct reflection of ourselves, that same magic and vastness and sparkly factor and amazingness that we see in nature is just merely a reflection of how incredibly magic and vast we are in reality. And in the same way, when you look up into the night sky and you see all the stars and the moon, and you have that moment wash over you of like, wow, it's just so vast. That is a direct reflection of how we are in reality as well. Mm-hmm.
As above, so below. Well said, Katie.
Yes. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. I just want to keep letting you ladies keep talking. So everybody who's listening right now, if you are in the video format, so what we're going to transition now to is you have the opportunity to have a little mini consultation with both Katie and Dr. Stephanie. So like I said earlier, if you hover down the bottom of the screen, you'll see the little chat option. And if you click on that and then select to me, I'm Kate Van Wyk, And then you can say like, hey, I have really bad shoulder issues. What would you recommend? What can I do? And then both Dr. Stephanie and Katie will speak to those.
And I would say, just to make it super easy, you can share either an ailment, you can share what your sign is, you can share what your favorite flower is, you can share what you're going through, you can share your favorite color, like whatever it is that sort of opens up a little door. It doesn't have to be anything that's serious.
Yeah. So there's one, what about something for like neck tension, like somebody who's always scrunched up in the neck and things like that? What could you speak to about that?
I think that's a lot of people actually with the neck tension. And that's because the neck relates to the Taurus zodiac sign. And Taurus is about expression at greater levels than the material, right? We really like the material right now in society. We like things, we like having things. But the Taurus energy reminds us that even all things, I keep saying more than meets the eye. This is the Taurus energy, that all things have more than meets the eye. So it's not there, the physical has greater representation. Think about remembrance of things past, Marcel Proust. And what he did was he took this little dessert, he took a Madeleine. And a Madeleine at just the physical level, carbohydrates, fats, some protein, that's it, right? But he transformed one bite into remembering how the church bells sounded and the smell of the air on a Sunday morning when he was having brunch with his aunt and the view he saw at the table. All of the things that surround us can transport us, right? How many times do you walk through nature and not notice the flowers that you're walking by? And how different would your experience be if you were to stop and literally smell the roses, right? So neck tension asks us, what are we expressing? What extent of ourselves are we expressing? Are we stuck expressing the to-do lists and everything we have to do and, you know, gotta have concerns about making the mortgage or the lease on the car? Or am I also expressing the part of me that's sensual and that enjoys and that has a car in order to go on joy rides and loves poetry? You know, what are you literally expressing? Normally it's not the full extent. And when it's not the full extent, it means there's something being held. And that something being held ends up being, you know, held in your muscle fibers, held in that tissue, which I think most people know, right? Like when I ask people, when I ask students, what's caused, you know, where do you take stress? People point within 1 second, anywhere on their body. Let's say they point to their neck. And I ask them, okay, what's causing the stress in your neck? Most people, no one yet has responded contraction of actin and myosin protein filament. Haven't heard that response yet, right? And that's what's happening, actually. Most people are going to say something, oh, you know, concerns about a breakup or fight with a loved one, or there's too much going on at work. You know, things like unresolved thoughts and emotions that they have yet to deal with, they have yet to attend to and say. And so that's the Taurus energy, guys, is what parts of you are you not expressing that you could express better? And I kid you not, but very with the intent of greater expression, opening yourself into it, slowly, properly, consistently done head and neck circles are enough to relieve your neck tension. I have had wonderful results in just a matter of weeks with people doing it consistently, properly, and with the intent.
I love that. In terms of flowers, there are several flowers that can help with neck tension. One of them is dandelion, which we all love from our childhood. And we remember blowing the seeds into the wind and making wishes. And it's really funny because when you hear kids, you know, you might have heard when you were a kid, like, what was that little saying, mama had a baby and the head popped off? Like, where did that come from, right? But it's so random and bizarre. But what I find so interesting about it is they're popping off the head of the dandelion, like pop. So how do kids intuitively know that, you know, that it releases the tension between the head and the body, that it actually like liberates the tension in the neck, right? Isn't that bizarre? And even when you see the seeds like blowing away from this little afro puff ball, it looks like just like, relaxing muscles. So it's like you see the effects of it in nature as well. Passion flower is another really good flower for just helping you let go, which can help relax the muscles. If you just can let go of, some of the things that we're thinking about, monkey mind.
Awesome. And then Lisa is an Aries, and her favorite flowers are hydrangea and peony. And she's specifically, so if we can incorporate those, but specifically she's wondering about her cycle. It's been kind of off with short and long ones, and then her weight has been up for just the past couple of years. So if there's anything you guys can speak to about that with her, specifically her hormones.
Well, Aries rules the head, and Katie just mentioned the mental monkeys, which indeed the neck supports the head, right, and the head is where our mental monkeys love to play. And the journey for an Aries is always going to be to realize that the obstacles, and this is for everyone with Aries energy, which we have in our heads, the obstacles we perceive as being external to us are actually internal, and they relate to outdated ways of perceiving who we are, our environment, and how the environment supports or doesn't support that. And the Aries energy is what makes us kind of like stuck. Aries is the ram that's like the ram butts heads. And ultimately, it's really just us butting our own heads with ourselves, even though we might think it's, the job or the relative or the friend or whomever. So if something sacral is going on, remember, I mentioned that the sacral center relates to Scorpio energy and the seat of our emotions. And that's also where many of our hormones are coming from, right? So, without knowing the person specifically, but thank you for sharing this with us, I would say that you're being called into greater embodiment of your emotional self and not just your mental head self, right? Not just the thought or the knowing or the understanding, but actually like the feeling and the sensing. And once you're able to let go and release some outdated stories, and instead of saying, hey, what do I think about that? Use as a litmus test, how do I feel about that? Hormones cycle might begin to regulate. And in the meantime, getting into any of, whether it is belly dancing, hula hooping, hip circles, the lying butterfly pose that I mentioned, any way that you can just keep connecting more and more with that area of your body with the greater understanding of it is going to help you to that extent. Someone also actually in the chat mentioned pole dancing. I love that. Pole dancing is also a good Scorpio sacral center thing to do. Yeah.
So there's a flower that's specifically really awesome at regulating or helping to balance hormones, and that's the pomegranate flower. It's actually in one of the goodies that we have called Radiant Energy. You probably have at least somewhere, but if you use it regularly, I find just by rubbing it on the belly every night before I go to bed, it's enough to regulate cycles, eliminate cramps, and make everything really smooth. It is, depending on where you're at in your life, for some women who are older and no longer want to have their period and the period is phasing off, they actually don't like it because it brings the period back. So just as a side note, that is possible for happening if anyone is older and using it. And then just a short note about peony. Peonies are so amazing, and it kind of falls in line with what Stephanie was saying is, when you just think about those huge blossoms and just burying your face, how that feels to bury your face in one of those huge peonies. They are just the epitome of lusciousness and gorgeousness and attraction and magnetism and abundance and just like absolute, yeah, just like pole dancing, because I think it was it's like total lack of inhibition. And so I would say keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, hold on, I have to scroll back. I've got a few more in here. Okay, so then another one asking about lower back pain. She is Scorpio and her favorite flower is jasmine. And then she mentions that she just tried a new morning exercise with dancing. And if she's wondering if maybe that might not suit her, or not feeling supported. So if you ladies could speak to that.
I think offhand, I would think dancing would be a fantastic way to get into the Scorpio nature and loosen up the lower back. You know, anytime we feel something in the body short of an accident or trauma, it didn't just happen overnight. It took months and years to get there. So 5 days is an awesome beginning, but go for 2 or 3 weeks and then feel the results. In addition to the dancing, though, bring in the intent of why you're doing it and know that, you know, just as there are no energetic walls in the sky between the zodiac signs, there are no walls in the body between our different body parts. And the skeletal structure of the bones in the lower back and the sacral center, which is the pelvis, are very intimately related. It's impossible to separate the two. So if you work on both regions, Scorpio and Libra, with some Virgo strengthening of the core, that will help, definitely. Physically, Cobra Pose really is a fantastic way to help lower back pain. So I might add that for you into your morning dance routine.
I agree with what Stephanie said. I think dance is really good for the back. I used to have chronic lower back issues, and I've been doing a lot of salsa dancing lately and have not had any back issues at all. So I would highly recommend dancing. It's making me a better person in my life. I could go on for hours about the dance. It's just it's such a huge positive force. I would encourage you to keep doing that. Just take it easy, go gentle, be easy, you know, be really gentle with yourself. Move in ways that feel really good to you. And that way you'll be sure not to injure yourself. And it really falls in line with the jasmine flower, which is one of my favorites too. Jasmine is about just total self-acceptance, total self-appreciation, confidence, owning it, you know, just owning yourself and your power and your beauty. You could do that through dance.
Yeah. And, you know, whether it's dance or for other folks, other things, know what supports you. It's going to be different for everybody, right? So you got to know what supports you. That's a really important Libra question. And then you've got to give it to yourself. That's the next step, of course.
Okay, and then next one is any practical advice to helping let go of past emotional stressors, particularly around heartache and divorce. And she is also a Scorpio.
That's a big one.
And there's also an element of betrayal in there. Sorry, I missed that.
Wow, and betrayal. Wow.
Yeah.
The whole shebang. I would bounce that from the scorpionic sacral center up to the heart center, which is embodied by Leo in the back, the upper back, and Cancer in the front, which is the chest. Because Leo is going to help you remember what your light is in a time when you feel really dark. Leo, believe it or not, because it's so light, shines. It's only by virtue of light that we're able to see the dark, not just metaphorically, but actually scientifically, like how we know the stars and the galaxies and the universe exist. So to really be able to step into a sense of self that must have gone through the ringer with divorce and everything surrounding that, and embrace, like, acknowledge the dark. Absolutely. Acknowledge that the dark is there, but this is probably the time that you need to balance the dark side with the light and come into remembering how and why you shine. You can even write a list. You know, again, there's a practical magic in getting things and ideas out of your head and onto paper. So I'd even write a list of what makes you awesome and recite that list to yourself in the bathroom mirror, looking yourself in the eye to remind yourself that you are awesome. And I know that that doesn't directly relate to the releasing of the emotions that you asked about, but indirectly it will, because I don't believe that we have to know or label every thought and emotion in us in order to be able to release it. I think that if we come into the heart center a lot of times, so then you could do a lot of expansive heart centering, opening work instead of folding into a cave. And the Cancer energy, likewise, Cancer is a very nurturing, very self-nurturing sign, giving yourself what you need during this time. It's going to help release emotions without your having to try, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, write a question again. I'll clarify.
Flower-wise, I would recommend flowers like fireweed. Fireweed is a flower. It's called a pioneer species. So when you see natural forest fires occur, fireweed will be one of the first fires or first flowers that comes in to heal the environment. So, everything is in flux. Everything is changing in every moment. We may feel scarred, but it's actually always growing and transitioning. So fireweed brings in that sense, that like fierce, strong pioneer sense of healing and nourishment and balance. Another two flowers that came to mind were rhododendron and hollyhock. Rhododendron is great for bringing in a sense of unconditional love and appreciation. It helps when we feel like we've been wronged or abandoned or unloved or any of those kinds of feelings. And hollyhock is another great flower for tenderness and gentleness, and also helps us when we feel like we've been, or when we have been betrayed. Those would be the top three flowers I would recommend, and they're all that kind of beautiful magenta pink, light pink: fireweed, rhododendron, and hollyhock.
Beautiful. So we are getting towards the end of our hour, but I do want to make time. We've got one more question, so I'm sorry, everybody, that had a bunch coming in, so I wasn't able to get to everybody's. But this last one here from Debbie, she's a Pisces. Her favorite flower is rose, and she's wondering any advice for overcoming procrastination. That is an excellent question.
Leftovers, Pisces. Yeah, you guys, you're all about integrating spirit into matter. Pisces, big challenge in grounding, right? And I'm guessing that's what the procrastination is. It's just like an inherent resistance that's not even a resistance, kind of question mark that's built into that sign for all of us. How do we ground all of this stuff? How do we ground our hopes, our dreams, our fears, etc.? Let's see. Do I want to go into the Aries or the Virgo energy? I might come into the Virgo with like breath of fire and get a little catalytic energy going on. So Virgo is the abdomen, and I'm also reaching into the third chakra for this one. You can do a breath of fire, which is a fast yogic breath, in order to feel empowered and literally stoke the fire, because Pisces is otherwise a water sign that's just going to keep going with the flow. Think of water with no container. Like if water has no container, it's still water and it's awesome, but it's not as readily able to serve its purpose as, let's say, water in a vase with flowers, or being channeled into a hydraulic mill or coming out of a faucet. So you want to be able to step out of that water essence for a minute in order to better get to where you're going. So the breath of fire would be really great, as would core strengthening. But I think an active core strengthening, not as much a hold like Navasana or goat pose, but even just like powerfully done crunches that just come, because my crunches aren't supposed to be done from the neck. They come from the center, they come from the core, empowering it, through the core, even combining it with a breath, I think that's going to help overcome some procrastination.
Yeah, so we have different reasons for procrastinating, right? I know in my own life, sometimes we have like 50 things and we're overwhelmed and we don't know where to start. Sometimes it's a matter of doing too much. Sometimes we're procrastinating because we just have too much going on, and we really just need to like shave it down to the singular most important things. There is this flower called red bird of paradise that grows in the summer in Arizona in the desert when it's 115 degrees. It is so hot you could fry an egg on the roof of your car. But everything is hiding. The birds aren't chirping. Everything's quiet. And these flowers are just like, yes, they just love it. They're like fire eaters. So that flower is really good for just getting you into motion, motivation, drive, passion. Another flower that comes up is euphrasia, which is all about trusting yourself. Sometimes we hold back because there's this little niggling thing in the background that's like, do I really trust? Do I really trust myself to make that move? Or maybe sometimes it's not procrastination, it's actually hesitation or kind of hanging out in the background. Euphrasia is a really helpful flower for that. And I would just say, in terms of like really practical applications, I had a lot of procrastination when I was writing the book, and one of my writing coaches really helped me with that by saying, like, just take a small little bite-sized piece and start there. Like, what you think is manageable to start out with, go less than that. So she said, if you feel like you can write for 30 minutes a day, then start just saying, I'm going to write 15 minutes a day. And I was like, oh, of course I can write 15 minutes a day, please. Like, that's easy. Okay, then start with 15 minutes a day. And if you sit down to write for 15 minutes, then suddenly it goes into 30 or 45, well, then that's okay. So just, start with really bite-sized pieces that are very manageable. Another couple things to try would be, decide what are the 3 really most important things you need to get done today, and just do those. And you could also approach it maybe in a different way. Would help is, what's the really important why behind why I want to do this? So in my case, I'll use my personal example. If I would be feeling procrastinating about writing, then I might say to myself, oh, but one person could get this book in their hands and it could totally transform their life. That's my why. Oh my God. Okay, I've got to go write. And then it's, a completely different experience. So that would be another kind of practical thing that you could try to incorporate.
Wow. Ladies, thank you so much. Stephanie, Katie, it's almost 6 o'clock. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. I loved hearing both of you talk. Before I just wrap up and give everybody the details for your books again, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off? I just want to give you that opportunity.
I want to say that I love Stephanie. I'm a huge fan of her work. And I'm like so enamored by the way that you've blended astrology and the stars and the cosmos into our bodies, and have made it so easy and yet so complex and interesting and intriguing. So I just want to appreciate you and thank you so much for jumping on and sharing your wisdom.
Oh my gosh. I'm thrilled to be here and to be in your life in many different capacities, and to incorporate the work you do into the work I do.
It's a great fit.
Katie and I have on this one. And thank you everyone for sharing it with us. We wouldn't be able to do this without you.
Thank you for asking such great questions too. And I love that you shared your signs and your favorite flowers. And I loved how everything just sort of fit together in a picture. I hope that what we said made sense for each of you who asked, because it seemed to really fit together.
Yeah, there was really great information. And if there is any part of this call that you missed or you want to go back to it, we are going to be sending out a recording so you can rewind and take more notes if you need to. So thank you everybody so much for joining us on this call. And Stephanie's book is called Your Body and the Stars. And it is available right now. You can go to Amazon and buy it. Look it up, Your Body and the Stars. And then and Katie's book, Flowerevolution, you can pre-order it now, and it's being released November 15th, but you can pre-order it. And if you go to LOTUSWEI.com/sneak peek, you'll actually get some free goodies too. So
first 2 chapters.
Yes.
These are fun exercises.
They're good ones.
Yes. Really fun stuff. So thank you everybody so much. Thank you.
Have a wonderful night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for being here. Good night.
Good night.